Good morning, everyone. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professionals IGP Bangladesh. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professionals IGP Bangladesh. Thank you all for joining us and staying with us till the end. Honorable knowledge seekers, today I am your host for the morning, and my name is Oritra Basha, and I am from Bangladesh. Dear IGP knowledge seekers, I am proud to be associated with IGP as a global member. IGP is a social and ISO certified international training institute. In last 3 years, we already served 3 million knowledge seekers from 100 plus countries. IGP is internationally recognized and globally accredited. We are connected to more than 250 plus professions and 4,500 plus organizations. Institute of Global Professionals (IGP) is the training faculty for skill development, which was founded in 2020 and is generating competent candidates to meet demand in the global labor market by providing professionals qualifications. The Institute of Global Professionals is an educational institute that provides social work globally recognized and reputable. We are serve students and community resource providing holistic social work and education. We believe that it's not effective to increase our one skill just by acquiring formal education. So we provide effective training and consulting to generate proficient generation all over the world. We distribute our service locally, nationally, and internationally to students, job seekers, job holders, and also our learners, though respective campus location and distance learning platform. We are an occupational and dependable institution. IGP is one of the most famous online institutes from all over the world. Our vision is education is not a business product. It's a part of our human rights. Based on our vision, we are trying to reach all corners of the world of free webinars, seminars, courses, award, quiz competition, mentoring, and counseling, etc. On the other side, we are also trying to serve more than 100 premium service through free like create own portfolio, website, resume builder, cover letter, motivation letter, and world knowledge platform for gathering general knowledge which can update all day. Kids learning games, website free courses, convert sites, and many, many more. We help to empower youth to learn to meet their expectations and dreams and become highly skilled people to implement several training programs, webinars, and offline online courses for youth and learners by professionals, trainers, speakers, and coaches. Our sessions are conducted by globally renowned professionals to develop all kinds of youth to promote the education and their abilities and personalities. To ensure excellent and in-depth instruction, we arranged with qualified trainers, speakers, and instructors. We extended free service to more than 3 million knowledge seekers in the last 3 years. We have affiliations with universities and organizations in 70 different countries. Virtual mouse signing with many colleges and organizations have been accomplished. We are working to create a legendary generation to future scholars and citizens who will be accountable. We are constantly prepared to assist all knowledge seekers with valuable service. Spreading knowledge is crucial for the Institute of Global Professionals. We believe that knowledge is love, light, and vision. So we try to understand the needs of today's generation and will be served then good research and practice method. We must have a genuine concern for the learners. We represent more diversity, growth, and innovation and required to lead a session with professionalism, passion, and integrity. IG members are committed to offering effective based quality service and continual improvement so that individual who seeks improvement can improve their skills level and values. Before we move to the next, let me remind you, don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable to us. Thank you. Before we move to the next, let me remind you, don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable to us. Thank you. Moving to the next. With your continuous support, we already completed 1,290 webinars successfully. Wow. Moving to the next. With your continuous support, we already completed 1,290 webinars successfully. Wow. At present, we are going to start our 1,291 program name is Authentic Assistant. And our today's speaker name is Sir Dr. Jorge L. Mayordomo. Before I hand over the stage, sir, I want to share a little bit about our speaker. He is in Dan College of Education, Villagers College, Montessori. Now, very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with his presentation. Now, very important moment for me to IGP with his presentation. Hello, sir. How
Hello,
are
good
you?
afternoon. Yeah, I'm good.
Good. Sir, on behalf of IGP Knowledge Seekers, want to share from you about you, sir.
Yes, okay. Is my slide okay now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good.
Now stage is your. Is you can start your presentation.
Okay. So, shall we start? How many people do we have here now? Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Here in the Philippines, it's already 12:20 in the afternoon, and probably good morning on the other side of the world. So, um, welcome, IGPians, and welcome to this afternoon learning. So, we will be sharing again. So, a lot of things in terms of assessment this time. Last time we shared some sort of classroom management. And this afternoon, I'll be sharing with you authentic assessment. I know that most of you know what authentic assessment is all about. But again, as educators, we have to remind ourselves that in today's educational arena, we teachers, we have to always think on how we have to assess our student, or on how should we assess our students in different learning activities or in different forms, so that they will be able to see and to find out some sort of something new in terms of teaching and learning activities that we are giving to them. And this time, it's what we call authentic assessment. Again, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. George Mayordomo. So I just have to make correction. I'm no longer connected with the Villagers Montessori College. I'm now the Language Learning Center Director of the National University, Manila. Okay? So let's start with our session this afternoon. This is what we call sharing of knowledge and learnings. So everyone could come and join us and learn something from us this afternoon. So authentic assessment has been it has been a subject, no, for all educators. When are we going to give an assessment? How authentic is our assessment? Why do we have to give authentic assessment? What's the purpose of authentic assessment? And are we trying to measure also the higher order thinking skills in terms of giving our students application of what they have learned on a particular topic? Is an authentic assessment could actually show how students master the right skills that we ask them to master? And how are we going to assign grades to our students in terms of authentic assessment? So, number 5 there, you could see a rubric. So educators are normally using rubrics in terms of performance assessment and any forms of assessment, especially on authentic assessment. So we have to make use of rubric every time we are trying to ask students to do something to show off their skills that has been developed based on the skills that we need them to master. So the second question is, what is authentic assessment? Authentic assessment, the notion of this is not new to us. This is not new. In some discipline areas, the students have always been required to develop products and or to perform realistic tasks in order to demonstrate mastery. So in our classes, normally teachers would have to ask students to create something, to perform something, to show the mastery or to demonstrate the mastery of skills that the students should have to master. And in many disciplines, students' demonstration of the mastery of various domains of learning objectives has not necessarily equated a demonstration of their capabilities in real world setting. Not all students could actually show off how they master the skills and how are they going to apply this to the real world situation. Assessment for mastery should not necessarily be equated with assessment of learning in authentic learning situation. So if you want your students to master the communicative skills using the English language, you could probably design speaking activities like debate, for instance, like role playing, for instance. That's authentic assessment. That's authentic. You are trying to um, demonstrate, or students are trying to demonstrate the right skills that they have learned from that discipline. Okay, and not to mention your learning objectives every time you execute your lesson should always be to your teaching and learning activities. If you want your students to really master the right skills, try to align your learning objectives and your teaching and learning activities. In that sense, you can see that students are actually demonstrating the mastery of skills that you want them to master. Okay, so in authentic assessment, so it does not appear to place greater emphasis on the integrated performance of what has been learned under conditions that require the coherent of bringing together of the elements learned. But sometimes learning is being a combination of knowledge, skills, and attitude of students that could easily be understood by most educators. So, authentic assessment has to do with students demonstrating that they know a body of knowledge, they have developed a set of skills, and can apply them in a real life situation and can solve real life problems. So therefore, authentic assessment is performance based. Okay, remember that it's a performance based, and it requires students to exhibit the extent of their learning through demonstration of mastery. So always remember that once you are going to design an authentic assessment to be to be performed by your students, so it has to be performance based. Like for example, if you are physical education teacher or a professor, then you want your students to master the skills in dancing, for instance. Therefore, you will ask your students to demonstrate that skills in dancing. So what are you going to do? You ask them to perform. So that's authentic. Okay? Then assessment, for instance, we have also here that when we are going to consider how to assess students' learning in the course that you are handling, most of us would agree that ideal assessment would be one that not only to assess learning, but it also teaches students to improve the skills and their understanding of the content of the lesson. Okay, it's not just our purpose to assess, but we want our students to not just to perform, but to improve that skills, and for us teachers also to understand the course content. No, one fundamental aspect of such assessment is that they are authentic. So it has to be an activity that could be applied by students in the real life situation. Okay, then an authentic assessment is one that requires application of what students have learned to a new situation. Okay, so if you want your students to master the speaking, speaking skills using the English language, then you have to design an activity on speaking, debate, role playing, and other forms of speaking activities. And this activity could eventually allow your students to use what they have learned in that activities into the real life situation or a new situation where they are involved. like talking to friends, writing letters, probably presenting reports, presenting paper presentation, or discussing something inside the classroom using the English language. So what they have learned, what skills they have mastered could be now used in an authentic situation in the classroom, outside the classroom, in the community, or even on their professional life. Okay, so assessment is an evaluation of achievement or learning, or to see the learning progress of students. So we are always trying to compare traditional and authentic. So what makes them, different from one another? So traditional assessment, we have to make use of the paper and pencil. Okay, we have also the multiple choice essay. Then we have the um, matching type. Probably some of you are giving matching type of assessment, and a lot of paper and pencil forms of assessment. But in authentic assessment, as what I have mentioned a while ago, that this should be performance based. Okay, you ask your students to create, to perform something, to present something. Okay, it's a performance based assessment. If you want them to dance. If you want them to act, then ask them to act in front. If you want them to create something, then ask them to create something. That's performance based. And make sure that you will be using the right scoring rubrics for the performance of your students. Again, I mentioned this in my previous sharing in last December, that rubrics could always be downloaded from Google, but be sure that you have to do something about the rubrics just to fit into the kind, or the skills that you want your students to demonstrate. Okay, so you could always do something about the rubrics. Then if you are going to look at the authentic assessment, you have there different aspects, no? Different factors when we speak of construct or authentic assessment. So it should be meaningful, it should be real. No? It should be multiple assessment could be also be done. The student selected task and positive interaction could be one. Higher order thinking skills, because you will be using, the students will be using a higher order thinking skills, or we call it the HATS. Then constructing knowledge, they will be constructing knowledge. Why? Because they will be thinking, they will be assessing, they will be appraising everything to come up with that kind of performance. And it should be a solo or a collaborative performance. So it could be done by one student, or it could be done by a group of students. Then encourages transfer of learning. Yes, this is something good for authentic assessment, because it will encourage students to make use of what they have learned and apply it to the new learning situation. So there is what we call a transfer of learning. Then allows for multiple solutions. Yes, no, like for example, if they will be writing, probably presenting their research output, so it would allow them to give multiple solutions to the research problems. And reflection or self-assessment, this is self-assessment is very necessary. This is where students could understand about their learning abilities, of how much they have learned on this kind of situation, how much they have learned, and how students could eventually integrate the learnings to the new knowledge. So they could do reflection, no, self-assessment. And formative or continuous. Okay, formative assessment, we know that formative and summative assessment. So again, formative is done when teachers are um, actually executing the lesson. And for summative assessment, it's done after the discussion, or everything has been properly discussed. No? A topic, probably a chapter of the book, or a unit. So you could do summative assessment for that. Then specific purpose and the audience. In authentic assessment, you have your specific purpose. What do you want your students to do? And who are your audience? Who are your audience? Are these students with what year level, and so on and so forth? But you have to be very careful and be specific about the purpose, because once students would not be able to understand the purpose of the assessment, they will not be able to perform as well. Okay. And a lot of things there. Then authentic assessment can be contrasted with conventional test questions, okay, which are often indirect measures of students' ability and to apply the knowledge and skills gained in the course. So conventional tests have an important place in college courses, but cannot take place of the authentic assessment. We are always doing the conventional test items. We could not do that. We could not do away. I mean, we could not just take away the conventional test. It should always be a part of our assessment. In my case, I'm teaching college students, and I do a lot of assessment. So I do paper and pencil, like multiple choice assessment, because I'm handling education students, and I have to practice them answering multiple type of tests, because that will be the same test given during the licensure exam. So I have to give them series of paper and pencil assessment. But then I have also to give them authentic assessment, like demonstration, lesson demonstration. It's authentic assessment, asking them to prepare a student portfolio. It's an authentic assessment. And then ask them to present their portfolio. This is one way of seeing the holistic learning of your students in your class. So you give them paper and pencil, multiple choice, essay, whatever assessment, but do not forget to give them authentic assessment as well, for you to be able to see the holistic development of your students, either whether they have learned skills in different ways. Okay. So we have here um, in typical tests, so required correct response, like identification, like multiple choice, like matching type. So it requires a correct response. No typical test. An authentic task require a high quality product or performance, and justification of the solutions to the problem encountered. So one thing that we could also give our students in terms of authentic tasks is research. Ask them to do action research or a feasibility study. It's an authentic assessment. So indicators of authenticity, so correctness is not the only criterion. Students must be able to justify their answers. Yeah, because during the research presentation, students would be able to justify. So therefore, research is an authentic task. And we have a lot here. Must be known to the students in advance to be valid. Okay, are disconnected from real world context and constraints. When you are giving multiple type of assessment, multiple type of test, you're not actually asking or thinking that your students would be able to master the skills and be able to make use of the skills in the real life situation. All we thought about giving them the multiple type of tests is sometimes it's more on recall of of the concept or the context and of the lesson. So another one, it's contain item that isolate particular skills. So uh, aside from the first column, look at the second column, no, the authentic task. Um, should be known. Number two, should be known in advance to students as much as possible. Okay, that's authentic. Why? Because when you ask your students a certain performance assessment, you have to give them time. You have to give them time to prepare for the performance. Then are held to real world context and constraint require the students to do the subject. Okay, like creating a diorama of something or performing something. It requires the students to do the subject. So if you are teaching art appreciation classes, then you want your students to create some sort of an art form to represent their knowledge and skills learned from your lesson, then that could be an authentic assessment. So another authentic assessment is an integrated challenges in which range of skills and knowledge must be used in coordination. So yeah, like dancing in PE, like running, like whatever. So once they are trying to make use of their psychomotor skills, then it's an authentic. Involve complex tasks. That's another one, and another one it's a recurring tasks or provide diagnostic information about student skills and knowledge. So these are just some of the examples of our authentic tasks. However, authentic assessment may require more time. Yes, as what I have mentioned, do not give your students an impromptu. Okay, now you have to present your uh, performance. No, you have to give them time to prepare, and normally you give them 1 or 2 weeks to prepare for that, for you to be able to see the whether students have already mastered the right skills. So for you, they have to demonstrate the skills. You have to give them ample time. Okay. Then, as what I have mentioned, you have to make use of a rubric in evaluating your students' authentic assessment or assessment. So, easy to create. This is a holistic rubric, very easy to create because it reflects how many instructors, how some instructors think. Score or grade gives students less specific feedback. And one of the characteristics is a good option to large classes when you are only general feedback to students or enjoy. So this could be an example of an authentic assessment. So we have here for nursing. Okay, those of you who are teaching nursing, you could probably give them a case study of a patient and ask students to assess and create a plan of care. So this could be one of the examples for nursing students. Then those students who are enrolled in the business program, you could give them a business or marketing sales plan for an imaginary or real company in a student's area of interest. So you could ask them to develop a business or marketing plan. Then if you are teaching computer science students, you could ask your students to do troubleshoot a problematic piece of code or develop a website, for instance, or an application to solve a particular problem and or meet a set of criteria. So if you are teaching psychology, you could ask your students to examine or to critique a case study from multiple theoretical position. So these are just examples, but you could also give your own. Then if your students are public affairs or in service learning courses like HRM, tourism, for instance, you can give them this kind of activity. Consider how a community agency might be impacted by the particular challenge or a budget cuts, infrastructure outage, public health crisis, or so on and so forth. So you could give that. Then for biology students or chemistry students, you could ask them to draw a diagram of how a process works, indicating what happened if X occur. And if students are majoring in history, so you could give them this kind of activity, engage in a role play of a particular event in the history and describe what might have happened in one elements of the historical event. Like, for example, in your country, in the Philippines, for example, in other places, in other countries. So you could always ask students who are majoring in history and so on and so forth. So these are just good examples for authentic assessment. And assessment is authentic. This is the big question. No? How are we going to know whether it is authentic or not? So it is authentic if it is realistic. Okay, realistic. Something that has to be performed by students that is relatable or that could relate in the real life situation. And another one, if it is authentic, if it requires judgment and innovation. Okay, like conducting research on something, creating something that could innovate our generation. Like for example, in science and engineering and technology, for example. So an innovation there could be an authentic assessment. Then it is authentic if students ask this, or if you ask the students to do the subject. Like for instance, you ask them to create a machine, for instance, that could be used by people on the highland there, on the upland, as an electricity generator. Okay, so that is something that the student should do, so it becomes authentic. There are places in, for instance, in the Philippines, in the most remote areas in the Philippines, which still do not have electricity. So a lot of engineering students are, coming from different universities, are actually doing some sort of innovation that could help people there, family there, students in those places without electricity to have at least an electrical power through a particular innovation created by these students. Okay, so that it could help young people there who are also studying to make use of their night time to do assignments, to do reports, to review their lessons and so on. Because since they do not have electricity up there, students could not do their assignment at night because it's somehow, it's dark, and they are using, we call it a lamp being used with oil, no, an oil lamp, and it's not healthy for students. So they are innovating something, so it's becomes authentic. Then it is authentic if it assists the student's ability to efficiently and effectively use a repertoire of knowledge and skills to negotiate a complex task. Okay, like for instance, a business proposal. Okay, a business proposal, or an analysis of government services, for instance, in one community, and they could give their own feedback, and they could give their own solution. So that could be one of these authenticity. So if it is authentic if it allows appropriate opportunities to rehearse, practice, consult, resource, and get feedback on the refined performance and product. Okay, so product creation, business proposals could be one of those. Okay. Then let's look at this traditional and authentic. So selecting a response is traditional. Multiple choice, matching type, it's traditional. Contrived, so in authentic side, so performing a task, it's authentic. Real life activity is authentic. Recall or recognition, so in authentic, it becomes authentic if you're going to use construction or application of knowledge. Then teacher structured in traditional, in authentic is a student structured. Okay, and traditional it's indirect evidence, in authentic it's a direct evidence. So this you can look at the difference between the two, but be sure that when you are going to give your students an authentic assessment, it has to be performance, they have to create, it has to be a real life, it has to be where students could do something. It has to do something with innovation. Students are creating something to innovate something, some sort of idea, a product or whatever, so it becomes authentic. So why authentic assessment important, no? Why is it important? It is increasing concern amongst educators and students about the lack of alignment. Okay. So when we speak of authentic assessment, we are trying to look at the right skills and its application to what should the learner has been able to learn and apply it after school. Okay. So it's not just about the pages of the book, but they have to learn how to do something, create something. And we are teaching our students to be innovative, to be lifelong learners. That is why authentic assessment is very necessary. You could still give the traditional assessment, but always give your students an authentic assessment for them to be able to demonstrate the skills that you need them to master. Okay. Then uh, we go back again to what I have mentioned a while ago, the alignment of our learning objectives and our activities. When you give your students your activities or assessment, or we call it authentic, whether it is authentic or traditional, you have always to go back to your learning objectives. Okay, your learning objectives says at the end of the lesson, the students must be able to, okay, use English language in their communication, be able to write a paragraph using correct English language. So if those are your learning objectives, you have to give your students teaching and learning activities which is constructively aligned to your learning objectives. Okay. Some educators, they have this is common mistakes of some teachers. When they design teaching and learning activities, they don't consider, or they forgot to consider their learning objectives. That's always the problem. Okay, so always go back to your learning objectives. Then, okay, so demands of external stakeholders, industry, professions, and so on and so forth. So we need to um, give our students time to demonstrate the skills, because that's the demand in the outside world. For instance, students are majoring in technology or information technology. So they must be good in programming, they must be good in creation of application, they must be good in innovation in terms of technology and so on and so forth. Why do they have to learn that? Because that's the demand of the industry. after graduation, they will be hired by those industry. Therefore, they must have the right skills. So you cannot just teach your students anything that you think it's right for you, but you have to always consider the demand of the industry. Employability of the graduates nowadays are one of the so many concerns of different universities. Okay, of different universities. They need to be employed a year after graduation. That is why in school or in the university, we have to train our students to really master the necessary skills that the industry is looking for or looking for the graduates. Okay. Then, the need for teaching and learning experiences to develop knowledge and skills on the one hand, and supportive attitudes of values on the other hand, to inform well-rounded and productive workers and citizens. So, these are just some of the necessary reason. Educators need to teach their courses more cost effectively by using appropriate self and peer assessment strategies to share judgment, making the quality of students' work amongst key parties in the educational process. So teachers should always master, no? We have to master the content of your lesson, and you have to always consider the learners, your students. You do not come to your class on your own comfort, but you have to always think of your students before coming to your class. You have to prepare. Okay, in other words, you cannot come to your class unprepared. You must have your plans already. You must prepare to share to your students the right skills and activities and so on. Then ever increasing and pressing, by this time we mean demanding of attention. So bodies of knowledge, both theory and practice, on the ways adults learn and ways in which learning can be best enabled and well-designed contemporary teaching and learning environments in higher education. So we could, as educators for that matter, we have to always see to it that we design lessons, we prepare our lessons in such a way that students can learn from us, that students could really demonstrate the right skills that should be mastered by students, as stated in the mission vision of your college or your university. So how are you going to design authentic assessment? This is somehow very important for educators. So step one, list the skills and knowledge you wish to have. Students learn as a result of completing the task. So that's your learning objectives. So at the end of the lesson, what do you want your students to to complete? What do you want your students to do? That's your learning objectives. And second, design a performance task which requires the students to demonstrate these skills and knowledge. So we are talking here about the teaching and learning activities. Okay, so you give them role playing, probably you give them debate activity. You ask them to write something. You ask them to create a paragraph on something. You ask them to present their ideas on something, and so on. So that's what we mean by the teaching and learning activities, which is always be constructively aligned with your learning objectives. And number three, develop explicit performance criteria which measure the extent to which students have mastered the skills and knowledge. So again, we are talking here about the scoring rubrics. Try to design or create or just probably use no existing rubrics that could really um, measure the right skills of your students. Okay, so scoring rubrics is very important. Then framework for designing authentic assessments. So we have here some sort of a framework. So the task, no? So what do you have to do? Okay. Has to be one of the involved students in carrying out activities that reflect what is done in the professional practice. So that's the task. What do you want your students to do? Then the physical context is where you have to do it. Okay, it's the real places of work are different from institutional learning environment. So this is the real places of work. So where do you have to do it? So you give them the task and then where they could apply the task. Okay, it's not in the institutional learning environment, but it's in the real places of work. After graduation, after 3 years, after 4 years of studies, where they should apply this particular skills that they have learned. Then on a social context, so it's we mean here with whom do you have to do it. So um, who will be involved in that kind of activity. So you have to always think of collaboration of students or people who will be working with students in the future. Then assessment result or the form. So what has to come out of it? What is the result of the effort? So always we have to assess. We have to look at the output of students so that we could have a chance to give them advice for the improvement. So that's the assessment result or form. And number 5, criteria and standards. This would mean how does what you have done have to be evaluated or judged. Okay. In the sense that in this in our end as educators, we are using scoring rubrics on how to evaluate the standards of students' output. That is why I'm telling you that you have to make use the right scoring rubric. You cannot just use any scoring rubrics for that matter, but you have to use the right one depending on the activities or the teaching and learning activities that you are giving to your students. So practical tips for teachers. Okay, so definition of authentic assessment in the literature can be quite pedantic, but not all assessment need fit the definition. So you could have probably your own definition, but be sure that authentic assessment has been defined by a lot of scholars and a lot of educators, and this would only mean uh, one definition. So it's something for students' performance and student output. If you are not in the position of being able to redesign the whole assessment approach, move incrementally towards more authentic assessment by changing one task or context at a time or an aspect of a task or context. So if you think you have problems in terms of assessing your students, you could always design or change the context to come up with an authentic assessment. So tasks are more likely to be authentic when they are designed with colleagues, including those from other discipline. So you could always collaborate with your colleagues, even if they are not teaching the same subject as you are. You could always collaborate with them to come up with a very good, authentic assessment. So there is no need to reinvent the wheel. Find out what your colleagues have done and consider ways of adapting or modifying existing approaching. So you could always adapt what others are doing. You could always reinvent, or you could reinvent your own, but it's also allowed to modify the existing one. Okay, the key is to devise a task that immerse students in realistic project. Okay, always remember that the task here is to always immerse students on the realistic project. Then ensure that students are clear about both the processes. So it must be clear to them. Everything should be understood by students to ensure a very good outcomes. Then explore the possibilities offered by simulation technology or interacting authentic assessment, and develop such simulation does not mean that you need to be part of that funded projects, or you could always um, use technology in the creation of your authentic assessment. And you could always, ask your students to be a part of a particular project for them to be able to apply the skills that they have mastered and should be demonstrated in that particular project. Okay, don't have to always ask your students to think of something original, but if there are projects coming from other departments, probably in your university, conducted by students or by professors, you could always ask your students to be a part of that project. Okay, then nothing is perfectly authentic, so please do not think that there is what we call a perfect authentic assessment. Okay, do not think of that. What you might be doing is always, yeah, is always correct, and do not judge yourself that you are doing, which is you are doing the opposite. But once you are doing it and you were able to constructively align your learning objectives to your teaching and learning activities, and that your activity is somehow relatable to the real life situation, or could ask students to demonstrate the right skills, that's authentic. So do not think that what you're doing is wrong and the others are correct. Nothing is perfectly authentic. Okay, so do not give burden to yourself. Do not cry, do not be despair that others are doing this and you cannot do this. But again, I ask you to always probably adapt some activity that has been created or done by your colleagues, and devise some sort of that. So you can revise, you can reinvent, just to fit to the kind of skills that you want your students to master. Okay, so do not punish yourself in terms of authentic assessment. So we have the references here. I guess I'm done. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Any question?
Thank you so much, sir, for your rich content presentation, which can impact our knowledge seekers surely. After your presentation, I hope our knowledge seekers can learn something new, which was only our intention. Learn and grow together, IHP knowledge seekers. Once again, thank you so much, dear sir, for your presentation. Now, sir, it's time for the question of the session, which is one of the most valuable part of our regular webinar. Or I will say, please stay with us. After a short video, we will come back in our next session, which is the question answer part. Dear IGB knowledge seeker, ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have webinar certification and online quiz competition. Sir, after a short video, we will come back for the next session, which is the question answer session. Thank you, sir, and stay with us. Welcome back, sir. IGB knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as we want to know from you, know from our speaker. Thank you. After your question answer, we have webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGB knowledge seekers, ask your question in the comment box. Our speaker is waiting for your comment, waiting for your question. IGB knowledge seeker, ask your question in the comment box. Dear IGB knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box. Our speaker is waiting for your question. Sir, hello, sir.
Hello.
Sir, I hope you covered full topic properly. That's why there is no question.
Yes, as I can see here, one said, Sir, Dr. George, thank you so much for sharing. And I would like to say thank you
Sir,
also for attending and
sir,
for learning
question.
this afternoon.
One question from Mary Joy. Hi, sir. Any tips to give a authentic activities to elementary students?
Okay, so any tips to give an authentic activities to elementary students? Again, um, Mary Jo, are you from the Philippines? Okay, because I know that in the Philippines, once you are a teacher in the elementary, you are teaching almost all subjects. Am I correct? So all subjects you are teaching. Now, yes, okay. So Mary Jo, it's from the Philippines, and that depends on what you want your students. So in elementary, Mary Jo, can you give me example of a subject in the elementary that you are teaching? Give me an example. You are a practice teacher. Okay. So give me an example, Mary Jo, of a particular subject that you are handling. Okay, give me Mary Jo. Is it science? Is it math? Okay, science. Okay, so science. Now, and if you want your students to understand, no, for example, living things, okay, in science, because basic science skills are the focus of elementary kids, no. So authentic is you are bringing your students to a zoo, for instance, Mary Jo. So you can bring your students to the nearest zoo in your place, and when you come back to your classroom, you ask your students to describe what they have seen in the zoo. Okay, so that's authentic. And another one is if you want your students to experience the flowers or the plants in your school, inside your school premises, you can bring your class to the garden. Hopefully you have a garden in your school, so you can bring your students there and then ask them to look at all the flowers and plants, and notice that the colors of the flowers, they have to always, if they can write down what they have seen, for example, the gumamela flower, the rose flowers, what are the colors? So this is one way of making your students aware that flowers don't have the same colors. Okay, that gumamela, it has different colors. It has yellow, it has red, and so on. Roses, it has different colors. So you could always ask your student to synthesize what they have seen in the garden once you go back to your own classes. You could ask your students to um, tell the class to share to everybody what they have observed, because I know that students have a different observations. They don't have the same observations. Now they have different observations, and it's very exciting to know how they observe and what have they observed in the garden. Okay, that's authenticity, because you are not just allowing your students to appreciate the picture. You don't just allow your students to draw the picture, but you bring them to what is real in the garden. You bring them what is real in the zoo. Okay, you ask them to see animals, you ask them to see flowers and different plants, and ask them to share what they have noticed and what they have experienced, and that's authenticity. Because most of the students in elementary years are very visual. No, they are very visual. Okay, they don't care about the text. They don't want to read. They don't want to to read a lot of text without a picture. So they are very visual. So that is, those are just some of the examples. I hope I gave you I open your your mind on these examples of activities for science in elementary. Okay, thank you, Mary Jo, for your question.
Thank you, sir, for your answer. The IGB knowledge seekers, please ask your question in the comment box. Our speaker is waiting for your question. The IGB knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box. Sir, I hope you covered full topic properly. That's why here is no more question.
Yes, and I would like to say thank you to those who attended. Thank you so much. And I still have a lot of sharing to do here in IGP. So just watch for that. No, I'll be doing a lot of sharing. I guess I still have 6 topics to share. So I hope you could still attend to those sharing sessions. Thank you very much, everyone. And I guess that's all. Thank you so much.
Once again, thank you so much, Honorable Sir, for your time in IGB. We have learned a lot from you with new topics. It will add some value to our day-to-day activity along with our academic and professional growth. Honorable Sir, hope to you see you again with a new topic and a new day. Thank you, sir, and take care.
Thank you.
Honorable Sir, before we move to the next webinar certification process, if you want to leave this studio, you can, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for coming.
Bye, everyone.
Dear IGB knowledge seekers, it's time for the webinar certification process, the most attractive and powerful part of our regular webinar. After a short video, we will start our webinar certification. After webinar certification, we have an online quiz competition and quiz certification. IGB knowledge seekers, it's time for the webinar certification process, the most attractive and powerful part of our regular webinar. After a short video, we will start our webinar certification. After webinar certification, we have an online quiz competition and quiz certification. Thank you. technical problems we cannot share our certificate code. We provide our certificate in a short time. Thank you. Today's our some technical problems we cannot share our certificate code. We provide our certificate code in a short time. Thank you. Dear IGP knowledge seekers, it's time for the most engaging part of this webinar, which is an online quiz competition, regular webinar activity. Now it's time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. To join the online quiz competition, please follow my instruction carefully. First of all, you have to go www.slido.com, then find today's quiz or scan this QR code for direct joining. And the code is global IGP. Global IGP. After a short video, we will come back. Dear IGP knowledge seekers, please join in Slido with code and the code is global IGP. Dear IGP knowledge seekers, join in Slido with code and the code is global IGP. Already 21 people joined with us for this session. Dear IGP knowledge seekers, please join in Slido with code and the code is global IGP. IGP knowledge seekers, please join in Slido with code and the code is global IGP. IGP knowledge seekers, please mention your friend for this session. 26 people joined with us. Let's start. Our first question is in this session, authentic performance assistant can be. First option is cognitive complex, and second option is includes collaboration. First option is cognitively complex, and second option is includes collaboration. First option is the right answer, and 43% people are right. Moving to the next question, and our second question is: when should authentic assessment be done? First option is all the time, and second option is during the school testing days. Second question is: when should authentic assessment be done? First option is all the time, and second option is during the school testing days. First option is the right answer all the time, and 60% people are right. Moving to the next question, and our third known question is in this section: how can an authentic assessment be created? First option is by the teacher, and second option is 1 and 3 answer. 1 and 3 answer is the right answer, and 27% people are right. Moving to the next question, and our fourth known question is: which of the following might be an authentic assessment? First option is fill in the blank test, and second option is journal. Journal is the right answer, and 64% people are right. Moving to the next question, and our fifth long question is: authentic assessment is an alternative to what? First option is high stakes testing, and second option is keeping a grade. First option is high stakes testing, and second option is keeping a grade. In high stakes testing is the right answer, and 92% people are right. Moving to the next question, and our sixth long question is free question: examples of authentic assessment. Select three. First option is the Nikki, and second option is the state. First option is the Nikki, and second option is the state. Nikki is the right answer, and 88% people are right. Moving to the next question, and our seventh one question is: assessment procedures should be based on activities that have authentic communicative function. First option is prone- proximity to actual language use and performance, and second option is a holistic view to language. First option is the right answer, and 72% people are right. Moving to the next question, and our eighth known question is: what is assessment? First option is examination can periodical times task, and second option is assessment is analysis of student information. Which is the right answer, please? Okay. Assessment is analysis of student information is the right answer, and 48% people are right. Moving to the next question, and our ninth known question is: which of the following word of BEST best associate with authentic assessment? First option is the efficient, and second option is realistic. First option is efficient and second option is realistic. Realistic is the right answer and 93% people are right. Moving to the next question and final question in this session is, if you use the most authentic method of assessment, which procedures should be considered? First option is traditional test and second option is performance based test and third option is realistic. First option is traditional test and second option is performance based test. 96% people are right. Performance based test is the right answer. Congratulations, top 10 IHB webinar quiz competition winners. Congratulations to our webinars online quiz competition winners top 10. Congratulations, again slide will take a few minutes for finalizing the result, and after that we will issue our online quiz competition certificate on our official Facebook page and group. The name is official Facebook page and group, Institute of Global Professionals. Congratulations to our webinar online quiz competition winners top 10. Congratulations, again slide will take a few minutes for finalizing the result, and after that we will issue our online quiz competition certificate on our official Facebook page and groups. Name is Institute of Global Professionals. At the end moment of our session we can say properly fits your skill. Never stop learning cause life never stop teaching us. Be happy and stay safe. See you again and again. We want to participation in every program. If you want a life, a happy life, tied to a goal, not to people or things. Albert Einstein. Before I say or hit the end button, again wants to thanks to all IHB knowledge seeker for our active participation. As always, see you in the next session. Thank you. Thank you for joining with us. Staying with us.